So my last video on my commute in Los Angeles quite blew up, kind of showed the horrors of commuting in Los Angeles, and as a lot of people pointed out, it is quite bad. Since I shot that video, I've moved out of Los Angeles and I'm actually staying temporarily with friends in Long Island. But that being said, I've had to commute to work in Midtown Manhattan from Long Island. And as I said, this was a temporary situation, so this is again the last time I will be making this commute. So I figured I'd show you what this commute in Long Island is like. This commute is similar but quite different to the Los Angeles commute. It's similar in the same manner that it's a long commute. It's a very long commute. The entire commute is about an hour and a half door to door, but it's radically different in the fact that it's a very comfortable and very enjoyable commute. That being said, it's also a very expensive commute. I'll talk about how expensive it is at the end of this video, and also what that's kind of made me think about. But before I shoot the commute, I do want to say thank you everyone for the big milestone we hit. We passed 1,000 subscribers. Also, if it sounds like I'm in an empty room and there's a lot of echo, it's because I am. I just finally moved into a new place. This will hopefully be a permanent place for the next year, so stay tuned. Like I said in my previous video, in celebration of hitting 1,000 subscribers, I plan to do a Q&A video. So if you have any questions about my explorations or what I've seen or my thoughts on anything in regards to urban planning, feel free to drop it in the comments. And if they're interesting enough, I'll include them in the Q&A video. All right, let's get back to the commute. So I start this commute by going north up Glen Head Road, and eventually we're gonna get to Glen Head Station, and that's where I'm gonna take my train. The walk itself is fairly decent. I only walk by a 2-lane road, so you know it's loud, but it's not Olympic Boulevard loud. Man, what is it up with America and putting poles directly in the sidewalk? Like, we are approaching the station. A lot of people actually drive their cars to the station and then commute from the station to Manhattan. It's a common pattern I see it in New York, but it's one that's always kind of, I don't know, just found a little strange to me. The fact that you need to drive to use another mode of transportation. Tell me what you think in the comments below. There is a pretty nice shelter here at the Glen Head station, but there is always this fire alarm that I think is just low on battery that is constantly beeping. You can hear it in the background right now. Rough. The train itself is a double-decker C3 railcar for you train nerds out there. I've definitely made a habit of going to the top level just to get a better view. The interior layout of the train is similar to what you will see on any other Long Island Railroad train. There are nice clean cushioned seats and some luggage space that is honestly rarely used. The train ride itself is super relaxing. For the most part, the train ride is pretty stable, with some bumps when the train enters stations. But I can quite comfortably draw or read without getting motion sickness on the train. The views on the ride are really nice as well. You're riding from Long Island into New York City, so you really see the suburbs transform into the low-density apartments, which later transform into high-rises. There has also been some cool bus development happening in Jamaica that I've eyed every time I've entered Jamaica Station. The first and only transfer is in Jamaica Station. It's quite a rush to get to the next platform from here. Jamaica Station itself is nice. It's nothing special or glamorous, but it definitely is a convenient station. The station has these nice heated waiting rooms which people sit in during the winter. I've used them during late nights back from the office, and I really appreciate them. I then get on the train to Penn Station. In this video, I actually make the mistake of getting on the train that stops at Woodside first, which extends my trip by about 5 to 7 minutes. I land at Penn Station, which is my final stop. Penn Station has seen a transformation in the last 5 years. And a station that once looked like an underground Roman temple now looks like a modern airport. Everything is super modern and minimalist. They now have these digital screens that display station information. The entrance to the station has also experienced a transformation. It's large, made of glass, and has this very impressive mural of Manhattan on it. The area around Penn Station is essentially a construction zone right now. You can hear it in the background. There are a lot of buildings going up and old ones being repaired right now. Yeah, bike lanes. The rest of my commute is a 15-minute walk to my office. I figured I'd spare you the Manhattan sightseeing, however, in this video. So now that we've seen the commute, let's talk about the price. A round-trip ticket from Glen Head to Penn Station costs $28, or $14 one way. Personally, I work a hybrid schedule, so this means I was only doing this trip 3 times a week. So my total fare cost me $84 a week, or roughly $336 a month. This is a lot of money to spend on commuting, even from my perspective. In my case though, I was able to justify this cost because I was staying with friends and I didn't have a car, so I wasn't paying rent or any car payments. But there was something I noticed on these train rides. My schedule was not consistent and I took this train on various days. However, I started to recognize the same faces every time I was on the train. This got me thinking, how much are you spending on your daily commute if this is your mode of transport every single day? Well, this question is actually really easy to answer. I assume if you're doing this trip daily, you would just get a Long Island Railroad monthly pass. This gives you unlimited rides for about $277 a month, which in retrospect, even I should have done. The other thing I noticed on this station is that the people there were very well dressed. Many were wearing silent luxury items of brands that I could never even think about affording. This kind of makes sense as well. I assume if you're commuting from Long Island to Manhattan on a daily basis, you're either a banker, work in finance, or just very enthusiastic about suburbia. Connecting these dots, I started to ask myself, well, if you have the money and time, why not just buy yourself a fancy car and drive to work every day? Thinking about this a little bit more, you start to realize that driving actually doesn't make a lot of sense for these people. At $277 a month, your commute is actually cheaper than if you bought yourself a mid-luxury to luxury vehicle. I highly doubt these people are going to buy themselves a beater car. The average New York car insurance costs about $114, quite expensive. The average New Yorker spends about $105 on gas a month, although if you're commuting from Long Island to Manhattan, it's going to be quite larger. This also assumes that you're not paying for premium gas, which you likely will be depending on the cost of your car. But even with these generous averages, you're already looking at $219 a month, which again, I think is on the lower end. Okay, well then you think about speed. Perhaps driving would save you some time as opposed to taking the Long Island Railroad. The train has transfers and the train has a lot of stops in between. But again, if we look at average commute times by car from my area to Manhattan during peak hours, you notice that the time isn't that different. The drive can easily take from an hour to an hour and a half during peak hours. Okay, well maybe the quality of the commute is different if you have your own car. Well, this boils down to 2 factors. What would you rather do for an hour and a half? Would you rather sit, maybe stare at the window, read a book, maybe draw, or even just take a nap, which are all the options you get with the Long Island Railroad? Or you can sit in traffic for an hour and a half on the Long Island Expressway looking at other cars. I guess if you have a luxury car, your view looks like this. But regardless of whether your car is 20K or 200K, you're still going 20 miles per hour on the highway. I think the choice for these commuters is clear. The train is roughly the same price, if honestly not a bit cheaper. It could be even cheaper depending on whether or not you've paid off your car. The length of the commute is roughly the same, although I'd argue maybe even more convenient since you're not looking for parking once you reach your destination. Finally, the commute is just of higher quality. You get to relax and do other things besides focusing on the commute. Especially if you work in finance, this is also a period of productivity. You can work, you can do stuff, you can answer emails. For this situation, it just seems more cost effective and honestly logical to take the Long Island Railroad than it is to drive.